You got to really know what you're doing before you get in there. I think a lot of people have really good ideas, and they're like, the only way to do this is VC, and they take it, and then they really like, I should not have done that.
What's your number one challenge as a business right now?
I run my business like it's a recession all the time. Personally, I like those constraints of we don't have enough resources, we don't have enough time. I think that makes you kind of think outside the box and do things differently.
What would you do differently if you knew what you know now? Kyle Miller, welcome to the show.
Hey, hi Ryan.
Just as a bit of context, I think the first time we met was a couple of years ago. I think I sent you a LinkedIn message. I said, hey, you should come and join this awesome startup source community I've got going on. And I think your response was probably the best response I've ever had to date, which was, hey, that sounds cool. Problem is, I just sold my business. So technically, I don't qualify because I don't meet the revenue threshold. And I was like, that was either the best flex or certainly the best response I've ever heard. So Kyle, can you just kind of run us through what are you working on? What do you sell and who do you sell it to? Can you kind of explain it like I'm a 5-year-old?
Yeah. Okay. So I've been doing this a while. I just hit 25 years experience last year. First 5 years I was working for somebody else, but the last 20 I've been running a number of businesses. The thing that I sold right before Ryan talked to me was a software platform, VehicHaul. It's for vehicle transportation. So I sold that a couple years ago, but I'm still heavily involved in it. They've kind of brought me in. I'm still running. I'm basically like the CTO for VehicHaul still. I sold it out, but I took a small piece of the bigger business, so I'm kind of still in the mix. Still want to see that thing be successful. So it's a package. So it's a big package, right? They imagine rental cars, right? You pick up a rental car, you want to inspect the rental car before you take possession of it. The guys got to use their mobile app. They got to take pictures. So there's a whole mobile app component to it, and then we're doing a lot of integrations of these big car manufacturers, and so it's a whole kind of spider web.
How did you get started with that? Like, what was the origin story?
Well, the origin story was I answered. So I had a business with a couple buddies. We were running a consultancy. It was going well. We actually made a software. This was before SaaS existed. This was like 2008. And I'm like, man, we need to. This is like it was very early in the SaaS game. It was an MFT, managed file transfer system. And it was good. It was better than a lot of the big ones. I'm like, guys, we've got to sell this. We need to wrap this up as a package and sell this somehow. And I just could not get the one guy on board. And I just was like, I'm out. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. So I quit and started back a parachute. And I started that as a consultancy. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I knew I'm like, I as a consultant, you get to dig in like a tick and learn, here's a big gap in this industry, and I'll take it. So I'm just doing random stuff. I'll do random contracts, whatever comes along. I get a completely unknown phone number, answer it, and it's this guy's like, hey, I'm in Chicago. We heard you've worked on a TMS before. That's what VehicHaul's a transportation management system. I'm like, yeah, I've done a couple. He's like, fly up here to Chicago and do one for us. And I did. I went up there and I pitched it to him, and I pitched it really high. It was way too expensive for him. And I said, how about this? How about you give me a good chunk of change? I'll own it, and then I'll be able to do whatever I want with it. So you'll get a great deal for life, but I'll use that money to build it and own it and then sell to whoever. So I I figured this would be a good side gig. I'll have a few customers that use this. I'll be doing my consultancy, but I'll have some SaaS recurring revenue. I really wanted to get into that. And at first it was slow, first couple of years, it was really just a side gig. Then all of a sudden, man, I started getting busy. I got to the point where I'm like, I got to go. I was working like 2 full-time jobs. I was doing consulting stuff for the day. I was doing that at night. I'm like, I'm done. I'm jumping in. So I fired all my consulting clients and leaned in. So it was great.
What's your secret sauce? So what's something that you do better than anybody else, or you do better than most people?
I am a very good developer. I would say in my local market region, I'm probably top 1%. I'd say top 10% in the country. I'm very efficient and good at what I do. But really what I'm very good at, I think the difference between me and most developers or programmers is I'm very good at talking to people and figuring out what they really need, like translating their wants into actual software that they want. Not like, hey, because they'll say, hey, I want a button here, and you put a button there, and they don't really want that. I'm like, well, let's take a step back, and I make them kind of work to the problem, and I'm able to take that and make that software. So I think that's really probably what I'm good at. I'm really good at making very, very good software. Not great at running a sales team. I'm not great at scaling it. Like the software can scale, but like saying, hey, let's hire 10 guys and so that's kind of not my thing. So, but very good software.
I think that's a really valuable skill set because I've met so many people that are really good on the technology side of things, but they just can't bridge that gap between what the client needs or what the customer needs.
That's what I'm seeing. There's absolutely the people that are better developers than me for sure. Hard stop. But that piece, being able to talk to the customers or who the stakeholders and really figure out what they need, I just happen to be very good at that. I don't know why. But
How did you kind of leverage that, or how did you move beyond that initial customer? What did you do?
nothing. Nothing. I didn't do anything. I just worked hard. I literally just focused on the software, made it better, made it better, made it better. And the way that the industry that I'm in is in, it's very, very tight network. So I knew that if I killed it, if I kill this, other people, because that company has to have other people work for them, and they'll say, well, hey, you got to use our software, and then they'll use it, and then they'll like it, and then it'll grow. And it was the network effect,
Right.
and it worked to it.
Right.
Yeah. So
So you just happen to be in a space where very tight network effect. You build a kick-ass product, and
they're going to have to do it. So I was just like, I'm going to focus on product. I did zero marketing. Website was terrible. Just plowed it all into the software and made it. And here's the thing. It's not beautiful. It's not what someone would call traditionally beautiful, but for this industry, I went with truck drivers. I got on the truck. I was loading vehicles with them. I watched what they did. So I made an app that they love. The truck drivers love it. And that's the key, because they're not bitching to the owner like, hey, this sucks. This is slowing us down. So these guys love it. And I knew if I could get them to love it, it would go up. And it was a gamble, but it paid off.
See, I have a lot of respect for that. There aren't too many people that would get out and actually start loading trucks just to see how the software works and how it holds up.
I mean, I'm in the Midwest. I'm kind of a country boy, so that's not like that much of a reach. I just went right over here to do it. So, but still, you're right. I think a lot of people won't get down in the trenches and kind of see what's really happening and kind of focus on some of that stuff. So that was my key differentiator.
Is that the biggest mistake that you see a lot of SaaS startups making, or is there something else that you see over and over and over again?
I would say, I mean, yes, I think they don't focus on the actual app enough. Like they get a little bit of success and they're like, cool, let's scale that sales team and we're going to do SEO and we're just going to kill it. And then you get people in initially, but there's a high drop off rate because they get in, they're like, okay, but this doesn't really do what I want to do. And then, it's kind of like it's like everybody does dropship on Amazon. They're like, oh, I'll sell these sandals from Alibaba. And then people get them and then they send them back. And so you get all these returns and it ends up not being kind of really worth it. I see that a lot in SaaS, just like that initial jump. And then they're like, oh, we got to scale. And I feel like if you could pull back and wait a little bit, I think that's
I see that a lot with venture funded startups. They raise a ton of money, then they're under pressure to spend that money to grow at all costs. So they go boom, 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 boom. Churn rate is ridiculous, and then they end up blowing through all the cash.
You're just gasoline, man. You got to pour it on that fire. You got to go, right? You got 18 months. We've got to double this business. If you're in the right spot. So if they would have done that to VehicHaul after 5 years, that'd have been great because the app was killer. You could have really dumped, a few million into it and just went. But I think if you're doing it after 1 year and you don't, there's a point where it's right and a point where it's not right. So you just got to kind of get that figured out.
What's your number one challenge as a business right now? What are you doing to overcome it?
I mean, it's just time. I have a very devoted customer base, and I get great ideas every day. They're like, oh, it'd be awesome it'd be great if, and I mean, I have a list of features that is amazingly long, and they're all great. And so just really filtering that and prioritizing it and doing what's important. I run my business like it's a recession all the time. I'm always have less people than I need on purpose. I think that personally, I like those constraints of we don't have enough resources. We don't have enough time. I think that makes you kind of think outside the box and do things differently because you've got to. We don't have 40 developers to just mull over this for a month or two. We've got 4 days. Go. What are we going to do? And so I kind of like those constraints. They help focus me.
Do you have any sort of mental models or frameworks that you use for deciding which features to prioritize? When you're looking at a giant feature list, how do you decide this is the one I'm going to smash out today?
Great question. I mean, it's gut feel, really. I try to hit the sweet spot of
Mm.
I've got people, if you're going to do the Venn diagram, right? You got people asking for it. It's cool enough that you think other people are going to be jealous, like, oh, I wish my software did that. So you got to kind of like you kind of move that circle around on the Venn diagram to hit the sweet spot of like enough people want it, or I can market it enough. See, I like having people
Mm.
really want something, because then I get beta testers and they're gonna be like a mouthpiece. So they're gonna be like, oh, this guy is great. We got this super cool feature. When they're out beers with their buddy that are in the industry, they're like, oh, well, yours doesn't. Look at a cool thing mine does, and they're gonna show them. So, you gotta hit some of the cool fancy stuff. And I will tell you that those are some of the least used features in the app. But people, and then again, they have the checklist, right? Like, well, it's got to do this, even if they don't use it. Oh, well, it's got to have that. I mean, like,
It's got to have
gotta
AI.
do.
I mean, obviously, even if there's nothing useful for it to do, it's got to have AI, surely.
Oh, 100%. I mean, yeah. I mean, obviously, you get the AI thing on there. It's so now I've been doing it a long time, so I would say my gut feels probably better than
Mm.
someone that's been doing it a year.
Mm.
But a lot of it's also going to be your industry too. You got to really. I have a deep knowledge
Mm.
of transportation. My first job was with the railroad, so I kind of knew this world. I got out of it a little bit, but I was still, I got deep enough that I could get back in pretty easily. So I knew transportation pretty well. So that was kind of a good thing. Like now I've worked in every major industry. I've done some military work. I've done all kinds of stuff.
Mm.
So I have a shallow knowledge of many things, but transportation was probably my deepest. So when the guy said TMS, I'm like, oh yeah, this is it. I'm going to knock this out of the park. So
If you were starting a new business tomorrow, what would you do differently if you knew what you know now?
I would, I would, um, I would do more marketing. I'd do more marketing and SEO out of the gate, because I just did very little of that, because I am probably more of a small business owner than I am an entrepreneur. I don't take big cuts. I live in the Midwest, so I'm a little more conservative with some of that. So I wanted to own my own business because of freedom, not because I wanted to be Zuckerberg, right? So I'm not trying to scale and have 100 employees. I'm trying to have humans are just a pain in the ass. I'm trying to have as few humans as possible. I want as much automation as possible. I want this software to
Yeah.
run itself, and I just want that recurring revenue. And I want to do things I like. So it was more really, this is more of a freedom play. Like, I get to, if I work for myself, I get to pick the things I do, and I get to do them how I want to do them. It just
Yeah.
happens that I've been pretty successful at it. So cool. That's good. It's good to do something you like and you're successful
Yeah.
at. It's a sweet spot that not a lot of people hit. So I've been kind of blessed there for sure. So I think, if I
Hmm.
truly, more marketing would have been good. Not even marketing so much
Hmm.
as just probably got on social more, push more SEO and stuff like that. That'd have been good. Now today, I think the thing today is different though, because with all this AI generated stuff, I have a feeling that search and SEO is going to really, really change. SEO is going to be more like you're going to ask ChatGPT, hey, go find me software that does XYZ. And I got to tell you what, I predict, I know some AI developers, I know some guys that work at places, just with casual conversations. As a human, I'm able to pick out AI
Yeah.
written stuff. It's real wordy, real long, right? I think that those AI is going to be able to, it's going to favor other AI written content because it likes how it is. It's wordy and long. And so
Yeah.
I don't, as much as I don't want to use AI for some of this stuff, I think you're
Right.
going to be almost penalized if you don't, right? Like, hey, I need a lot
Yep.
of words on my website because that's what AI likes, because it's chat. There's going to be definitely some black magic here where we're going to totally redo SEO for the like
Mm.
chat GPT overlords and gods of the new world. So, that's gonna be interesting. I don't know
That
how we deal with that yet.
that is a spicy take,
I
because
think it's coming.
I've spoken to some people, and what they were saying is that because of how easy it is to generate so much content with AI now, the Google doesn't want to see everything kind of flooded with AI, so it's putting
Okay.
more emphasis on human generated stuff. So if you've got stuff on Reddit, that does really well. Stuff on Quora does really well. Like, it's giving more emphasis to that. However, that's a really interesting point. I don't think I've heard anyone make before. Well,
But if I'm not using
exactly.
Google, who cares, right? Because I'm not looking at all the results. I'm just saying
Mm.
stuff because, like, I'm already
Yep.
using.
Yep.
I use
Yep.
that superhuman, the email thing, and you can like summarize a bunch of emails. I'm like, summarize these emails for me, and it's boom. It's just so it's pulling. Like, I don't care because it's just telling me, oh, ignore that. Here's the things out of this. So So
Yeah.
Google's going to lose some of its luster, and or you're just going to use Google's chatbot or whatever, however you're going to do it. But it's going to flip, and it's going to be interesting. So I think what I would have done is, I don't know, what I would do right now is I'd really pay attention to where AI is going. I definitely like I was listening to a thing from the guy
Sam
that runs
Altman. Yeah.
ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Sam. Yeah, he had a thing, and he was like, yeah, like all these people they're just kind of making plugins and stuff, and he's like, with all due respect, but like we're gonna totally crush all of them here with 4.5 or 5. Or he's like, so we're just gonna constantly, there's gonna be all these businesses that spring up, and then all these businesses we kill like with every release. I'd try to stay out of that wake. I would try to steer clear of that. I would pick a niche, and I would own that niche, something that they don't care about, and I would just really try to like get as tall of garden walls as I could immediately, right? Like you have to go really, really, really,
I
really
mean,
narrow.
you do hear
really,
these
really
stories.
deep
It's a lot of kids. They come out with something that is basically just a thin wrapper over the top of ChatGPT, and they sell it and they make a pile of money for a little while. But
yeah, it's cool. It's fun, totally fun. But like long term, you're not gonna do that long term. Back at Parachute, This is my 12th or 13th year. You're not gonna get an AI startup that's gonna do.
No, there's an expiry date on it because you're building a feature. It's just that. Yeah.
But if you go knowing that, hey, if you want to 2 years, you want to make a couple million 2 years, hey, do it. It'd be great. I mean, good on your resume. But as soon as you start doing that, man, you better get a backup plan real quick.
Absolutely,
real quick. Because they will kill you.
Have you got any other, maybe not unpopular, but just any opinions about building a SaaS business that maybe go a bit counter to the mainstream view?
Well, so what's interesting is, so like I said, I built VehicHaul as a lifestyle business. My intention was, I was talking to some of the other guys, like these carriers that I was talking to, they've been using software for 25 years. So I was like, if I get these guys, if I get them to hook, I will literally be able to get this going, and I'll just be on the beach. They'll be using my software. I don't have to do shit. It'll be awesome, right? And I'll just have customers for like 20 years. And I was right. I still have customers from like the jump. We've very few people churn. But I have other buddies that started at the same time, and they went VC startup route. Like we got money. We're gonna burn this thing, and we're gonna go. And what's funny is I started with the lifestyle business. I poured it all into the app, and I was just trying to because I'm trying to make my life easy. I'm like, I'll make this app just totally self-service, and it's good to go, and it's easy to use. And our trajectory is like, they went like this, and I went like this, and then we turned, like all of a sudden I'm running a startup, like I'm growing like crazy. I end up selling it. They're still just, making a few $100,000. I mean, they basically run a lifestyle business, and they're great lifestyle businesses, but they will tell you they run a startup every day. And I'm like, bro, that's not a startup anymore. You were 12 years in, your revenue is like plus 3% every year. Like, it is just, that's just a lifestyle business. I'm like, lean into it, so I think just because you say in lifestyle business is a dirty word in startups, it's like, oh my God, you're just like, but I'm telling you what, like all the guys I know that did startups, they either burned because they burned all the cash, they didn't have anything left, or they made it, they did just good enough that everybody took a write down and kind of let them run the business, and they're just running this lifestyle business. And I ended up, I kind of focused on product more and was able to take that. Could you do that all the time and everything? No, I don't think so. Maybe I hit a sweet spot. I don't know. I'm working on a couple new SaaS platforms, so I guess we'll see how that goes. Like, I'll get to eat my own dog food and see if I can do it again in a similar fashion. I don't know. But again, I'm running them. My goal is to start up a couple new things, and I'll never sell back a parachute. That'll be my own company. But I'm building these things now in a way that they're easy to sell off, so I can sell this SaaS platform or that one if it gets big enough or whatever. So, but my goal is to just keep them. And dude, recurring revenue is awesome. I love it. Getting paid while you sleep, good as it gets. I've done the consultant stuff, which you can make a lot of money consulting, but it's asses in the seats, right? Like, you can only make what you can make in a day. So honestly, now these next couple I'm working on, really, I'm kind of doing it for the science. Can I do a similar thing again? And if not, then I'll have to pour some money into marketing and do it more traditionally. But, I still don't think I'll do it with money. I'll still just bootstrap it and see how far I can take it.
That's the thing about when you're building a lifestyle business. The difference is you own 100% of it. So if you've got these buddies who've taken a whole pile of VC money and they've effectively built a lifestyle business, but they only own 10% of it, like
Right. So I sold
yeah,
VehicHaul for low seven figures, but I own
that's a
100%
great
of it.
payday.
That's a great payday, right? To do that as a 10 or 15% owner, you got to get a business that's 30, 40 million for you to get a decent payout and really change your life. So, I mean, my life is 100%. I took a lot of cash off the table,
Yeah.
but I also got to keep some ownership in the bigger company. Again, changed my life. So, but I'm able to do that because I owned 100% of it. If I had a partner, well, then that becomes less. It becomes less. You're like, okay, well, we gotta grow more. This isn't enough, right? So that is you're dancing with the devil, right? Like that VC. I mean, it is you got to really know what you're doing before you get in there. I think a lot of people have really good ideas, and they're like, the only way to do this is VC, and they take it, and then they really like not done that, So nothing wrong with it. You just gotta know the devil you're dancing with, I guess.
It sounds like you got a lot of things right with VehicHaul. Like you picked an industry that had this really tight networking effects. You really just focused on the product and built the best damn product out there, and then that was able to take advantage of the network effects and grow like that without having to sink loads and loads of time and effort into marketing. And it sounds like the decision to bootstrap it rather than raise VC turned out to be the right one in the end. What else did you get right? Is there anything else in there that you feel like I nailed that decision? I got that call right.
Well, I think the time to sell was one. So I was not ready to sell. I wanted to wait. I was like, I saw the trajectory. I'm like, this is going pretty good. I'm growing a lot. I wanted to wait like a year and a half. I want to get that revenue up a little higher. But I started fielding some really good offers, a couple of them, 2 or 3. I'm like, all right, I need to take this seriously. I'm not ready yet, but I think that this might be the time to go, right? But you're never really ready, right? You always want to be ready, but then a year I would have been like, oh, let's wait. I sold right before COVID, so that was like spot on. Oh, like perfect timing. Could have timed that one better. I mean, absolute peak.
Yeah.
So that was great. But really going back to like, I think I nailed that. Like I knew that I wanted to sell it at that point. Like again, the first few years, I'm like, I'm going to ride this out. But then it just started growing so much. I needed more than I could give it. I needed some sales guys. I needed what I really wanted. And now I got a couple offers. I didn't go with the highest offer. I went with the offer that had the biggest network because I knew that this network effect could really grow it a lot more. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to try to take this whole industry over. It's a little industry. I can get a big old chunk of this.
Yep.
So I went with the group that had the biggest network and was willing to kind of lean into it. And so, again, I wanted to be a lifestyle business, but it just started growing so fast. The carrot feeding, it needed more than I could give it. And that really, it was a good call. I'm still happy that I sold it. I have no regrets. So I think that, a couple years in, that's
absolutely,
I think it was the right choice. It was the right choice for me, for my customers too, really. And honestly, some of these guys have been with me 10 years. They're my buddies. Like I go out, I see them, we hang out, we drink beers, we smoke cigars. Like, so we're just, I've made quite a few friends off of this too. Definitely some enemies, but a few friends out of the way, like a couple friends.
I think that's a good sign. If you've got customers that have been still around, 10 years later, and your buddies with them, and you can go drinking with them, it means you built something good, something people find valuable.
Yeah, it's something they're more passionate about probably than me at some time. So yeah, I think I feel happy about that. I think it was good.
What's your end goal? Like, is it still to sit on the beach, checking your bank account balance and seeing it tick up over?
I want to start a wood shop. I want to start a wood shop, software, and do a wood shop. I live in Missouri. There's no beach in Missouri. Well, there's like streams, but not like beach. My goal is, I got a 12-year-old. He says he wants to be a programmer, so he says he's going to take it over. So I don't know. We'll see, who knows what happens there. But I think that my goal is I have a lot of knowledge that most guys that are running, I would say, if you're running a business that's under 20 million, you don't have access to guys like me. Guys like me are CTOs or running high, but because then you're gonna have enough budget and you're gonna be doing enough cool stuff that's gonna interest someone like at my level. But I did the corporate thing for a long time. I'm done with the corporate thing. I like working and helping small businesses. So really, I really want to get into doing more advisory work and helping some of these guys that have great ideas, help them, just take them the right way. I see so many guys get screwed by, and I'm not even going to say they are bad people. They don't know better. They're like, oh, I can, they get a tech guy and they're like, yeah, I did a thing. I can do that in 3 months and it'll be 10 grand and it'll be great. And, it is just a shit show from the jump. Like, and I see so many good ideas and so many people get screwed. They're like mortgaging their house and I'm like, don't do that. Oh my God, don't do that. Please don't do that. Like, I'll do it for free. Just don't do that. Like, don't do that. Oh my God. So I really want to help. I want to help some people like that. So I think I'm really trying to, I want to spin up kind of an advisory wing and help guys really just do this better,
When is the right time to work with you in an advisory capacity?
That's the right time to work with me. I think talking to me early is good. I'm not going to write code for you, but I can help you pick the right guys and then stay around and help. Because really what you want to get is you want to get a guy early and you want him to be involved. You want to give him some ownership and you want him to be your guy. I can help you pick that guy. I can help train that guy. I can help stay around and kind of set up a little advisory board to make sure, like, hey, I come in every once a month or something. We just kind of check, like, how are things going? What are your big problems? Like, what's the industry doing? Do you have something we need to do? And just kind of make sure they're making solid choices, like, on an ongoing basis, right? To keep that, because people want to think that software is this, it's not a driveway. You don't pour the concrete and then just walk away and it's good for 30 years. VehicHaul requires constant care and feeding. Like, we run everything in Amazon. Amazon's like, hey, guess what? All your databases need to be upgraded today. Go. You're like, oh my God. So there's never not work to be done. That will always have to happen. So you have to make sure that if you want something to last for 5 or 10 years, you've got to really take the care and feeding and maintenance of that is very super duper important. So getting a good guy that works for 2 years, you're never going to get rid of that guy. Like, you can't just be like, okay, cool, you did my SaaS, leave for 2, then just leave, and I'm just going to run it with a bunch of sales guys. It'll work for 6 months, and then you'll be totally boned. So I think getting to me early, I can help get you some guys. I think that the further along the path you are, you wouldn't need me for very long. Like, let's say you were doing $2 million ARR, it'd probably come in, hey, our dev team's kind of stuck. We've kind of like lost our way. We need to just kind of like reset the ship and go. Cool. That'd be like, hey, I'll work with you for a couple months, kind of get you guys going in the right direction, and then I can probably back out. So if you're early, you probably have more touch points with me for a while, and then I think a little further on the path, it'd be more like, help us solve this issue. Hey, our dev cycle time right now is really slow. We're doing one production deploy a month. It's not enough, right? We got to like up the cadence and do all that kind of stuff. So I'm a big fan of, I go to production we have a small dev team, just a couple guys, and we're going to production every 2 days or so, 2 or 3 days. Pretty good for a small team, and we're getting a lot of stuff done. So I can help kind of focus that and get some of those things done. So
I know one of the best pieces of advice I ever got from a mentor when I was very new to this world, 'cause I'm a non-technical founder, and he said, okay, Ryan, like, you are never going to know enough about the technology side of things to make a smart decision about this. So go and get yourself a technical advisor. Because if you try and outsource something, you hire someone on Upwork, like, you don't know what you're doing.
That's the thing. You can outsource stuff, but you got to have one guy you trust to check that stuff and make sure that stuff is good, right? Like, that's what you would do, is you would have me come in and say, okay, we outsourced it. Cool. Every week we're going to come in and we're just going to do a quality check and make sure things are like really, for probably 5 years of my career when I was doing the consulting thing, all I did was rewrite outsourced apps. They looked really good. So the problem is, when you give insert cheap country, whoever it is at the time, that was India then, Ukraine, now whoever it is, the Philippines now or whatever. When you give them requirements, they do them to a T, right? They will do exactly what you want, whether it's good, right, wrong, bad. They're like, oh, you want a button here? I'm putting a button here. But they do it in a way that it is not, you can't change it, right? It's like, so in a different podcast, we can talk about this. I have saved like all the worst code I've found over the years, just like all the terrible stuff I've done. And I'm just I was awestruck by this one. It was terrible, but like everything perfectly. But they're like, hey, you just need to make this one change. I'm like, bro, we have to write. I don't like rewriting apps. I'm like, this thing is it'd be like a house just with no foundation, right? Just like on the dirt. You're like, oh my god, this is terrible. Looks really good now, but bad. So what I can help with is making sure that quality stays up. So you can outsource. You can use less expensive guys. I'm working with a Ukrainian developer right now. Guys, sharp as tacks, but he will do exactly what you tell him to do, and you don't know that what you just told him he's going to go this direction. Where I can filter that and be like, oh, Ryan, okay, well, what really he meant is do this, and then you'll get like, oh no, that's perfect, right? So you've got to make sure again, you don't talk the lingo as well, so you're going to tell him, hey, I want a button here, and he's going to make you happy, and he's going to do it, but it may not be what you really want. That's a subtle thing that gets kind of lost in that, right?
Is there do you have any tips or hacks when it comes to outsourcing or hiring developers? Is there something that you look for? Does it just come down to the code review, or is there more to the mix?
Less is more. Hire fewer better developers than more cheap developers. There was a great book from this guy from IBM in like the 70s. It's called The Mythical Man Month, but it talks about running projects and how just adding more people, it like exponentially makes things worse with like communication and stuff. So the more people you have, the more communication that's going to get lost. It's a telephone game. It becomes a mess. So like if you're going to outsource it and one place is going to give you one or two really good guys who are a little more expensive, or you get like 10 guys over here, I would go 2 guys all day long. Just 2 good guys. You don't need more than, I'm telling you, 4 guys, you give me 3 good guys and I can move the earth. I don't need 50 people. You can do a lot with 4 to 6 devs. So you don't need a huge team. You need effective people, right? It's like the military. Are you going to call 1,500 people, or are you going to call SEAL Team 6? Who are you going to, depends on your problem, right? But you've got something very intricate. Once solved, you're going to call the experts, right?
What does a SEAL Team 6 developer look like to you? Are there any sort of traits that kind of give it away? Is it like, what if you're looking at, I don't know, what would you look at to identify this is my guy?
I always hire the busiest guy I can find. I always hire the business. I want a guy that's doing side projects and doing everything because he is like insatiable. I want a guy that is insatiable. Most of the guys I work with are contractors because they're all doing their own stuff too. And I love that. Like, hey, work for me part-time. That's great. Do side work for me. That's awesome. Those guys, that's what they like. I heard that quote a long time. It was like, always find the busiest guy to do something, because the guy that isn't busy, he can't ever manage. But that guy that's busy, he's knocking things out. So I try to find, like I said, the busiest guy. If somebody's not doing side work they don't seem like they love it to me. And maybe that's an antiquated hustle mentality, whatever. But I just know the best guys I've worked with all are just engross themselves in it, and they're constantly busy, constantly tinkering, constantly doing stuff. And even if they're not doing stuff to get paid for, just tinkering, messing, just writing their own work, whatever. I want somebody that is the guy that is just, like I said, insatiable, just wants it the most. And I will hire someone with less skills, because here's the thing about this. So like I said, I just hit 25 years. I've been a professional developer for 25 years. I've had to relearn my job every 5 years. Technology is so much different than that. Like, 10 years ago, we have iPhones. Now, you got mobile apps and all this stuff. Like, everything's AI. Now, AI is gonna like wipe out a lot of this stuff. We're gonna have to relearn how to do all this stuff. How are we gonna do with AI? How are we gonna make websites that are AI compatible? So, like, it's very hard to start your career, do one technology, and then retire in that technology, right? So you've got to be learning. They've got to be up on new stuff. So if you're truly just like going to the office and clocking 40 hours and you're out, you're that guy that's trying to do one technology and go. That's cool, but that's not what us in this industry are looking for. We need guys that are going to constantly be learning, constantly pushing envelopes, not just tell me exactly what to do and I'll do exactly what you tell me to do. No more, no less. That's if you hear people asking questions like that, be like, great, thanks. You're probably a good developer, but I don't think you're for me. I need a guy that's in it to win it. And other than that, it's like I said, I hire for attitude more than aptitude, because getting a kid that wants it is so much better. He can learn any decent developer can learn any language pretty quickly. It's really not that hard. It's getting that attitude. Someone that's going to work, someone that's going to like tirelessly, they're going to get a bug and they're just going to chew on it until bird dog it till it's fixed. Those guys are hard to find. If you find somebody with that attitude, hire them and then train them, and you'll be so much happier.
It seems like there's a lot of parallels. So I've hired a lot of marketers, and one of the things that I look for when I'm hiring a marketer is, have they set up a side project selling? Maybe it's affiliate marketing or something. Yeah,
Hire good
yeah,
people. I think it's you just
yeah,
hire good people, right? The guy that's
yeah.
like, that's it. I think that there's a lot of hurdles. I don't. It's not just developers, right? Like,
But it's interesting because I think there's a certain person that thrives in a startup environment, and that person always has other stuff going on, or they want to be an entrepreneur themselves. I don't know. Like, is that something that you look for, or you don't care too much, or?
oh, I do. I have a very no. I have spawned multiple businesses. I hired young guys. I said, listen, give me 2 years. I will train you. I will teach you how to write good code, and I will teach you how to run a profitable, successful business. And I have spawned. Now the problem is, I lose my best developers. It sucks. It sucks. So here, I'll tell you a story. Do we have time for a story?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I've got this guy. He is, I don't know, 23, 24. We worked together. I met him at a consulting gig. Sharp as a tack. Awesome. Very good mindset. We worked great together. So he and we were remote. He was he was working pre-COVID, right? So this is when we could go. And I've always been remote. But some people like working, like going into an office. So he was going into like a remote workplace, and they were like VCs funded this kind of remote work, like a like WeWork kind of thing, right? They wanted, they kind of wanted, so VCs, they kind of started this thing up, and then they started doing a pitch competition, and then they give you like, you at the end of it, if you won, you got a $50,000 grant. So they saw what we were doing some cool shit, and he's like, well, they're really badgering me about submitting an app for this. So I'm like, all right, we had an intern at the time, and I have a really good designer, and so we kind of had him mock some stuff up, and we made a pitch, and we won. And I was like, fuck. And then we won, so we get this $50,000, and they're like, okay, cool. So I'm like, let me guess, you want to run this, don't you? He's like, yeah. I'm like, all right, good, congrats, good luck. I helped him, get it going and stuff, but I'm like, I just lost my best dev there. So that was, but again, I'm fine with that. We're still good friends. If I needed something, I could call him today, and he would give me a weekend. If I like, hey man, I'm screwed, give me a weekend, help me out, he would do it in a heartbeat. So I'm very giving. Like, I don't want, if somebody wants to start their thing, I'm like, yeah, great. Like, do you need help? What do you need me to do? I'll call people. I don't care. I'm not trying to hold anybody back like that. So I like to, and I think that is why, to this day, most of the guys I work with, I've known for 20 years, and we still all work together. We've like, it fosters, like, I'm not trying to keep them, keep it secrets and holding them. It's like, hey, you do you, like, and when they're between things, like, I got work, I got stuff to do. And so I'll hit them up. They'll call me like, hey man, I'm having this problem. We do some design stuff? Can you come over and help out? And like, yeah, absolutely. So, I like that. I like that kind of, like I said, we kind of have this, like, it's almost like a cabal of groups, and we kind of work together, and we kind of scratch each other's back. And if I get a customer that I'm like, hey, I got a guy, call this guy, hook you up. So it's good and bad. You gotta find new blood, right? Because you're like, those guys are going out, but there's you kind of a little proud about some of the success stories, so it's like, it's good.
I think too, like, especially if you've got that person to kind of vouch for you and say, yeah, I worked with Kyle, it was amazing, I learned so much, and then moved on to my next thing, and couldn't say anything bad about the experience. It was awesome.
Well, I'm a bit of a yeller. I don't know if they wouldn't say anything bad, but it would be like more positives than negatives. Let's say that. Like,
I think though, there's a lot of people have a fear of hiring people that are entrepreneurial by nature, because they're worried they're going to lose them.
Yeah, you're going to lose them. And you're going to lose someone like that. But you just gotta you gotta be comfortable. Like, hey, I'm going to lose you, but these 3 or 4 years, you're 2 to 4 years, you're gonna be with me. We're gonna kill it. Like, you gotta lean in, and you gotta kill it, and then you gotta let them go, and you just gotta get the new guy, and you're gonna get that new blood. Honestly, there's very few people that can sustain that, what is needed for 5 or 10 years. I can, because I'm the owner. I get a lot of rewards from it. But I mean, some of these guys, it's hard for them to do it. So you get a good 2-3 years out of somebody, and you can leave them on good terms. You can help them out. I think I'll call that a win. Then I'll get some new blood in there, and you get new blood, you get new ideas, you get, it kind of keeps everybody on their toes. Good.
I think there's a real superpower in being able to spot talent before they know that they're good,
Oh,
and then you probably get a couple of years out of them where you're getting someone who is actually very, very good, but you're not actually paying them what they're worth just yet.
yeah.
They get that with the next job,
Yep.
and if you can do that repeatedly over and
Yeah.
over and over again, I think that's a
Yeah.
real superpower as an entrepreneur. So,
I've done that a
um,
few times. I don't have any. I'm kind of looking for a or like a what I would call an apprentice right now. That's kind of how it
mm,
was almost like you said. I kind of spot him like, oh, this guy's sharp. Let me help him get to where he's going. I'll get some good value out of him while he's a little cheaper. I'll help him go, and then he starts his own business. I've been too busy in the weeds. I've been so that's the thing that I do poorly. You asked that before. Like, what's the thing I do bad? I work in my business too much instead of on my business. That is a problem I have a lot. I have two heads down in it, and so I've kind of been needing a new apprentice probably for the last few years to just kind of get some of that new blood in and like kind of jumpstart that a little bit. So that's probably the thing I'm gonna. I did make the mistake
so-
of I figured like, yeah, I mean, a lot of people are laid off right now, but I'm a small company. I'll put a job rec out on LinkedIn. Holy shit, that was a bad idea. Oh my god. Oh my god. I shut it down immediately. I just had I'm like, this was terrible. I figured I'll put it out there. It'll be out there for a few months. I'll get like one or two people apply, maybe three. No big deal. Like, oh Jesus. They're like, I woke up in the morning and my phone was just. I'm like, why I gotta shut that off? That was not good.
how many did you
Like
get before you turned it off?
50. We're talking
Oh,
like 16 hours in. I'm like, this is I can't. I mean, it's me. I'm like, I have to review all these things. Or I'm like, I'm done. I'll just wait on that.
oh,
Holy shit! It was.
jeez.
Don't do that. That was a mess. So
Did final question, Carl? Do you have any other hiring hacks? Like, is there a good place to find develop? Maybe not LinkedIn, or at least not right now. But is there a good place to find developer talent um, that's a little bit outside the box?
college. I went to I had this girl who was working with me, and she was
Mm,
like a fresh grad. She was doing like QA and stuff. And I said, hey, you're just out of college. Like, go back there and find. Is there like a computer science group or somebody you can talk to? And she got me this kid, and he's the best mobile developer I've ever worked with. He's awesome. And but again, he was young, but he had a couple apps on the app store. I'm like, perfect, love it. I was like, hired. Let's go. If you already got two apps, get an app on the app store is a major pain in the butt. Oh
mm,
my god. Um, even if it's simple. And so I think that's interesting. Like going back to your college, go to your alma mater, be like, hey, I want a couple interns and just maybe start there, something like that. There's a lot of I think that there's a lot of good Ukrainian guys for sure. I've worked with a
mm.
few really sharp ones. Paying them's a little funky with some of the, there's some downside to that. But like I said, I kind of think of it like a farm team. I like to grow them and I like to make
Mm.
good developers and then kind of roll them out. So I try to get them out of college. Now, what's interesting is though, I'll tell you, one of the guys that applied on LinkedIn, he's like 74, super sharp. Interesting. It is interesting. I mean, I think he's the one that I'm going to end up hiring and give him a shot because it's just,
Really?
yeah. He like went to Harvard, MIT. Now it was a while ago. I
Yeah.
mean, he's an older guy,
Yep.
but
Yep.
he's got that attitude. He's like, he just doesn't want
Mm.
to. He just wants to work, and
Yeah.
hard to find these days. So I'm like, I'm gonna give him a shot. So be a couple old guys doing some stuff. We'll see how that goes.
There is this sort of perception that you get beyond a certain point as a developer, and everyone just wants to hire the young kids straight out of college, right? So
Yeah.
I suppose there are some really, really good people that maybe get overlooked sometimes. And
Well, there's a lot of
yeah.
experience in that, man. You can't,
Mm,
there's you've lived. I've worked through some holidays, worked through. I mean, you got it when
mm,
you're young. You maybe haven't felt some of that pain, right? So like when I'm developing code, I'm like, okay, if I do this, that's what I used to get called about on the weekends. If I do that, I'm gonna mess that up. That's gonna mess up my weekend. I'm not gonna do that. To do it this other way. You get that scar tissue, and you kind of like,
oh, yeah.
no, okay, I'm gonna do this a different way. So
Kyle, if someone's thinking about bringing you in, and so we spoke about like early on, it makes sense to talk to you basically as soon as possible, even if it's just a conversation now that might lead to something in the future. What about for someone who's a little bit more established, but things have, the wheels have just come off? Maybe they made some bad hires. Maybe they like what's.
I'm probably going to help them find a CTO. I'm not going to be your CTO, but I can help you find a CTO. Like, so you've either, because and you know this too, right? You get 5, 6, 8 years in, and that technical founder you got, he's bored. He wants to do something new, right? So there's a little bit of a blow up. He's gone. You're doing $1 million MRR or ARR. You've got a decent business, but you're like, and you've got 4 devs, but you need somebody to lead them, right? I've helped quite a few people like that. Like, okay, let's source some CTOs. Let's go through them. Like, I like to go in there, learn their business a little bit, try to find a guy that is kind of in their vein, and then. But then what I think is good is I'm like, okay, you got a new CTO. He sounds good on paper. Hopefully he's great. However, sometimes, most of the time it's not a technical thing. It's just more of a, like, the CTO and the CEO, they've got to be able to come up with like a shared, like dictionary approach, because he's gonna say technical stuff. You got to be able to like explain that to him and be like, yeah, no, this is good. And stuff like that. So I like to stay around and kind of do the advisory board thing. That's where I think it's perfect. Like, so you've got a stable business. We need to get you a new CTO. We want to make sure he's good. You don't want me like encroaching on him and making him feel like I'm like hovering, but just as an unbiased third party, I'm good at being like, hey, that wasn't a great decision. That was really good. Let's do more of that, less of that. And just kind of, that can help the CEO, just feel comfortable. Like, okay. And let's say this guy gets, because I had that happen once too. I helped a guy, and he picked a guy. He actually picked the guy. He didn't pick the guy I suggested he should pick. He picked a different guy. A month and a half in, he bounced. And good news is I was still there, so I was helping with code reviews and kind of keeping the devs going. It's like, okay, well, we need to source some more. And then he picked the guy I told him to pick, and then that guy stayed longer, and then kind of did like a 3-month thing. Just kind of, I'll stay around for a few months, just make sure they're good, and then I kind of like shoved them off, and they were good. So that's kind of how those tend to go when they're a little.
I've seen sort of two trigger points with that. The first one is where the technical founder is there because he can code, not because he can lead a team of developers. And the moment you go from one developer to a team, they get found out really quickly. I don't know if you've probably seen that too.
Oh, of course. Well, just think about Twitter, right? Like, Twitter started, these guys rewrote Twitter. Twitter's been rewritten like 5 or 6 times, right? Because as you scale from this size business to that size business, you got to get more devs, you got to get more servers. And just because you're the best coder in the room doesn't mean you're good at leading people. Leading people and leading code, and it's different, right? So, getting a guy with the mix is good. You got to have a guy that can talk to the CEO, translate that to the devs, make sure the devs are doing what they're doing. So he's got to be technical, but also approachable, So there's like you said, there's a fine line there, right? And as you go through those different steps, you might find out, okay, when it was me and my technical founder, and that was it, we're great. Well, we hired 3 devs, and they're doing God knows what, and we're kind of like, we've kind of lost the ships without a rudder, and that's when it's kind of, now that's a hard one, because that's when you got to be like, all right, listen, you're really technical. You can be the team lead, but you can't be the CTO, and that is when you'll lose a tech founder with that. But sometimes you need to, right? I mean, sometimes it's the right time to do it. So, but those are uncomfortable for sure.
And you want to make sure you've got some backup options in place before.
Well, you gotta get you want to have some stuff in line before you have that conversation. Obviously, don't do that one on a whim. I've come into that situation too. Like, well, we just got in a fight and he left. Shit, not good. Okay. And honestly, sometimes that's a good time to hire a consultant, right? And like, hey, I'm just gonna bring a guy in. I have a 3-month contract. We got to get a feature out. While you're doing that, we start sourcing guys, because hiring for a CTO, it's going to take you. The bigger your organization, the longer it's going to take, right? I mean, just because you have more money, more cost, more risk. So if you're making $1 million or $2 million, it's not as big of a risk as if you got a $40 million business. You got to really pick this guy right, because you want him to take you from 40 to 200 or 300, right? We're going $1 million to $3 million. That's a big deal, but it's also less of a risk, right? Than some of that bigger stuff. So
Kyle, it's been a pleasure, buddy. If someone's thinking about getting in touch with you, or they want to work with you, or they just want to, maybe explore that option a little bit more, what's the best way to get in touch?
Well, I mean, I wanted to have like a whole landing page ready for this, but life happens and I didn't. Probably just go to backupparachute.com. There's a contact and you can hit me there, or I'm sure they can get to you and then you can get to me, or, however that goes.
I'll stick a link
So,
to backup parachute software in
yeah,
the in the, in
perfect.
the description. Fantastic, Kyle. Thank you so much, mate. It's been a pleasure.